Welcome back to Visited by Voices, just talking genre. Not to disappoint everyone right off the bat, but it is just me tonight, so you're going to have to deal with a solo show, something you haven't had to deal with in quite a long time. But in case you guys aren't full of questions tonight, I did save up a few questions that I've gotten through Twitter and direct email over the month or so since the last time we did this. It's not a lot of questions, though, so I do need you to be a little bit active out there in the chat. Just talking genre is a show without a plan. It's always just me clutching my balls, wondering if anyone is going to actually speak up in the chat so we can have a conversation. But you guys always bail me out, so you can just start bringing my faith back up right now. I want to say hello to some of the guys out there. So Hollywood Styles was first in the door, and wow, this is an amazing comment. Best horror in-depth show around. Try to argue with me, I'll direct you to the hosts. You'll lose. Well, tonight's just host, singular, not plural, but I really appreciate the comment. Mike Fifth Beatles out there, DJ Donnelly, Joe Bob Tarheel, who else? We got Jessica 2991. How you doing, Jess? We have Uncle Beer, who has a koala bear as a icon. Hey, Big T is out there. S'mores and Doors. How are you doing, Corey? So I wanted to just start off with obviously the big news of the day, which is that Rob Zombie Monsters trailer, which is actually a message I got immediately when that thing went up. What do I think of it? Well, what do you guys think of it? I mean, it's kind of a dangerous thing when you try to make something look intentionally bad, which is what I think that Zombie has done. For someone who loves the Monsters television series and Monsters Go Home, the television movie in particular, he sings its praises all the time. It's kind of a weird sort of backhanded compliment to make a film that intentionally looks cheesy and outdated and cheap, real cheap. I earlier said that I thought it looked like an insurance commercial from 1998. You know, it's really cheap looking. It doesn't capture the charm of the original series from what I can see. Now, listen, trailers are trailers. You know, the movie could be very different. I don't even see the Hot Topic crowd going for this. I don't know. I don't know who the audience is for this. Kids aren't going to care. They're going to look at this and think it's endlessly lame, I think. And the nostalgia crowd don't want this version of the Monsters. So I don't know. Now, maybe in context, when you see the film, maybe it makes a lot of sense. Maybe it works. You always want to cheer for a film before you see it and then let it disappoint you rather than go in expecting disappointment. But I was not in love with anything I saw on screen except for bringing back the 1940s Universal logo, which, even though that's a little bit weird because the series was from the 60s, it always reflected the 30s and 40s Universal Monsters line. So I appreciated that. I didn't love that they added the film frames on the side. I thought they didn't need to do that. It made it look cheaper. But that's kind of Rob Zombie's thing, right? It's like everything on 11 all the time in best Spinal Tap fashion. All right, so there is some conversation out there that predates me talking about it. Hey, Lauren and everyone, and yeah, the Monsters trailer is awful. Look, Sean, you know, the thing is, if you wanted to make something that reflected like the values and the humor of a bygone era, I think there's a way to do that without embarrassing yourself. And I'm not sure that that trailer does that. Again, we have a trailer. We don't have context. And I thought the teaser was closer, right? We'll see. We'll see. Big T says Rob Zombie is officially the Kevin Smith of horror. Well, Kevin Smith would like to be the Kevin Smith of horror. You know, I think he's made as many horror films now as legitimate comedies, right? Because there's a couple dramas in there that people pretend are comedies. I don't know. Rob Zombie doesn't have a great track record for me. I like House of a Thousand Corpses for its wildness. It's like an hour and a half long Rob Zombie music video, and I appreciate that for what it is. Um, don't necessarily ever need to see another film like it, but I like it for what it is. Devil's Rejects, I really liked in theaters. I know a lot of people just love that movie. I don't ever find myself wanting to revisit it. I kind of like the memory I have of it, and I feel like it probably will get worse on a rewatch, so I just don't want to go near it. I want to live with having the one Rob Zombie film that I can say, hey, I had a really great time in theater with that. Never saw Three from Hell. I just felt it was too late, too little, and probably at the wrong point in that man's career. I won't go through all the Rob Zombie movies because I think everyone can pretty much figure out my feelings. So Mike asks, what is a really good giallo that no one ever talks about? Well, I really, really like both What Have They Done to Solange and its semi-sequel, thematic sequel, really. What Have They Done to Your Daughters? I like Your Daughters more, but I'm in the minority there. They're really rough Policia films, and it's hard to put your finger on. If you just want a slasher film that's made in Italy, that's not what those two movies are. They're really hard crime dramas in which murder is facilitated by drug dealers and prostitution rings. They're really grimy movies, but they're what a giallo really actually was at that time, as opposed to what people tend to think of giallos, which is really they just think of the Dario Argento films, right? And so that's really great. I recommend seeking them out. Anything that Martino did in the subgenre is obviously great to me because I think Martino might be more talented as a filmmaker than Argento or Fulci was, but he's not gotten his due. But I check out both those films. They were on Shudder. I'm not sure if they're still on Shudder, but check them out. Let's see. Big T did ask what for my feelings on the Monster trailer. I'm kind of getting the chat in the wrong order, I think. It's coming through kind of funky, so if I'm disjointed, I apologize, guys, and also please ignore the cats that are running rampant through the house. They got fed on an unusual schedule today, so they don't know what's going on. And hey, slasher home video. No, so that's actually one of the questions in here. So I'm not going to reveal who sent the questions. I don't know if they want to be revealed on the air as asking the questions. If it's you can always just scream it out. But so horror YouTuber of the month, right? I really am honored that Sam and I were nominated and nominated again. But our feelings on it are very simple. It's meant as a mechanism to get more subscribers. And that's a really great thing. When you're starting out and you don't have many subscribers at all, and there's not many people watching live videos or watching on replay, it can get very disheartening. So it serves a really good purpose to grow a channel. But this channel was created for very different reasons than a lot of channels. Yes, I'm promoting my books in the extreme background, but in reality, I just kind of want to explore with you guys the things that really interest me. And I thought there was an avenue open for discussing more than just the Halloween movies, which is pretty much every other horror channel, it feels like. And I don't mean that to be derisive. It just, seriously, just put horror into the YouTube search engine and see what comes up. And I guarantee you're going to see a lot of Michael Myers faces. So I really wanted to just expand the conversation with you guys because I think you want that. I think it's a big, beautiful, wonderful genre. So I don't really care about how many subscribers come to the channel. I want the right people. I've always said that. So when we were nominated by Flesh Wound Features, I contacted Sam immediately and said, hey, do you want to win this or do you want to have fun with it? And of course, if you know Sam for even a heartbeat, her answer was, let's have fun. And so we created that video where we told people not to vote for us. And I've been really suggesting that people vote their conscience, but, we're very fortunate here with the subscribers we have, and I'm really grateful for all of you. It's humbling to be nominated, but it's not something I need to feel fulfilled on this channel. So if you consider me competition, cool, but understand that we're probably not going to go way out of our way. And also there's some things that I can't personally do, because at the end of the day, right, I do have to remain within a certain code of conduct for what people think of as a writer, right? Like I have to approach publishers and say, hey, take me seriously. And if I go out there and make some kind of wrestling promo video, there's a chance that they would say, huh, this guy's out to lunch. We're not dealing with him. And you can feel sad about that. You can feel that I'm wrong, but it's a reality. The publishing game is a lot about impressions, like any other business. And so I have to walk a line. There's things that other guys on other channels can do that I can't do. Now, thankfully, a lot of it I don't want to do, but okay, sure, terrified. And Slaughterport, the winner of the contest, says, I don't know if our little community would be what it is without you, Lauren. You know, it would have been. It just wouldn't have. It just needed someone to get on the air and tell the community, like, all your voices are worthwhile. Like, get loud. And I did it as an offhanded comment, and that's it. I don't deserve any more credit than that. You guys were all ready to go, and I'm so proud of all the channels. Well, 99.9% of the channels out there that are in our circle that go out there and put out great content. During the pandemic, a lot of people were tuning in just to see the antics of this group of we don't even know the numbers, to be honest with you. What we think we know is a fraction, and we all needed it. Whether I was on a show or watching a show or commenting or reading comments or half asleep and just kind of half watching, this community really kept me going at a time when there was not a lot of good news around. So that's something I think we can all be pretty proud of too. Now, Mike, I disagree. You're not unashamedly a dumb streamer who's technically inept. You just need to learn how to run that intro I made for you. But Mike is, if you're not subscribed to Mike's channel, The Real Fifth Beatle, you should do so. Mike brings a very different perspective because he's from a different part of the world and had a different experience growing up with the genre, which he'll discuss with you. And it's really a valuable viewpoint. I think sometimes we get a little bit myopic and we're kind of like all just repeating the same viewpoint. And to have someone from somewhere else who perhaps didn't find the things we found at the same time in their lives is really, really valuable. So go subscribe to Mike's channel. And I mean that. It's not just calling out for a friend. No, you can keep going. It's really cool. I like that you guys are like going for the jugular. I think it's awesome. And Jonathan is out there. He says, nah, man, I would never seen anything with subtitles or in black and white. Eventually you would have. Eventually. All right. So another question. This is an older question. This goes back to a conversation from almost a month ago. The question is, you talk a lot, that's probably an understatement, about Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3, but you never seem to discuss the Alien versus Predator films. What's your opinion on them? So Alien versus Predator is not... The reason I don't talk about them probably very much is they're not horror movies at all. Like, the quadrilogy, you can kind of make a case for every film in different ways, and certainly the first and third films, absolute balls out horror films, right? Aliens is an action film, but it has a lot of horror trappings to it, and Alien Resurrection is a clusterfuck. But the Alien versus Predator films are action films. They're just straight action films that happen to have these monsters from other movies in them. I saw both of them as matinees because it's cheaper, and I kind of knew that's where it was the lane I wanted to run with these movies. I was never excited for them. I mean, a lot of people were because of the Dark Horse comics. I'd seen the covers of the Dark Horse comics, but I'd never opened it because I'm not a Predator fan, so I didn't care, right? I think the first film is fine as kind of a dumb, pulpy action film that borrows heavily from Lovecraft's In the Mountains of Madness, although it dumbs it down substantially. The second film is hard to review because I don't think any of us can maintain a memory of it. Every time I talk to anyone about Requiem, they say, I don't really remember anything about that movie. Now, I'm sure there's someone in the chat that's probably going to say it's their favorite thing ever and that they have it memorized, but in conversation, and I'm included, it's just not a memorable film. I know it was R-rated and takes place in suburbia, but that's from my memories of watching the trailer. I saw the movie and I have virtually nothing I can talk about that movie. Big T says, speaking of Netflix, anyone have any interest in that new Resident Evil series that comes out tomorrow? I'm not sure I was aware there was a Resident Evil series that comes out tomorrow. I just saw the last movie and I actually liked it more than I thought I would because it was at least taking the subject matter seriously. It did one thing that annoyed me badly, which is that it called out all of its Easter egg references to the video games really loud so that the audience would be like, oh, that's a thing I recognize, which I hate. If you're going to do that stuff, do it low key and let the audience think it's Easter eggs that only they get, make them feel special. But it means nothing to me. I never played the video games, and you're calling out character names. Oh, this person is this person. Okay, cool. Doesn't mean a thing to me, so it seems like a wasted beat, but whatever. That's not what I meant to put on screen, but that's okay. See, who's the real technically inept person? Huh? That's me. Jessica says, I think Lauren is the voice of validation for all these channels. They don't need me as a voice of validation. Not at all. Sean says, Alien versus Predator Requiem is garbage. Seems to be my impression, but I literally remember so little about it, I can't even say that. And I watched it once, I think I've only watched both of them once. But again, they're not really films that interest me. So Mike says, recently watched Oculus. Really enjoyed it. Way better than Flanagan's Ouija film. It is. It might go on a little bit too long, and the twist might not be quite as clever as the movie thinks it is, but it's a really enjoyable ride, and the performances are great all around. It's funny, if you want a DVD copy of the movie, they just hit the Dollar Tree, so you can buy them for $1.25, which is $1.25 to own the movie, man. If you don't have it, this should be a no-brainer. But I think Flanagan is an interesting filmmaker because his films are never home runs to me, but they're all really, really good. He has a great sense of aesthetic. He can capture time periods. And his films always feel really authentic, and they feel like real movies. I'm always on a rant about things not seeming like real movies anymore. Everything looks like it's a video game or a cartoon to me. It's the Marvel effect, right? Like that Doctor Strange movie was a straight up cartoon. And that seems to be most of what's out there, which is, I think, one of the few reasons why I keep promoting that Top Gun sequel as kind of a revolutionary film, is because it's a real movie. And it got released as summer fluff, but it was a real movie, and that's not something you'd expect. Is it portraying Wesker as a protag? It looks like it was. That's pretty lame. So, to be honest with you, I don't remember the characters to names. It's there's a lot of action sequences with monsters in that movie, but at least it has a good sense of atmosphere. So I can't really answer the question. Maybe you might be talking about the television series, though. If so, I wasn't even aware of it, so I don't know. Joe Bob Tarhill is highly recommending The Terminal List on Amazon. I will keep it in mind. And DJ Donnelly says, when you think of horror, which director comes to mind first? And what movie score from the genre comes to mind first? Now, I'm a really weird one with this because my ringtone on my phone is Lucio Fulci's House by the Cemetery for most people. But for work-related stuff, it is Robert Towne's score from Haunting of Julia, or if you're in England, Full Circle. Just because I think those are probably my favorite horror scores of all time. But as far as directors, it's hard because I don't fetishize directors quite as much as other people do. I don't know, probably James Whale, to be honest, simply because I kind of worship many of the films he made. Or if I'm cheating and I could use a producer, or Val Lewton, of course. But the voice of validation, as in getting them out there and kill it, no matter the skill set. I gotta say, look, you know who the unsung hero of our community is? StreamYard. Because if you really think about it, without this company that put this service out there at a pretty affordable rate, and I'm not saying it's not glitchy, it is glitchy, but I don't think most of us could do this were it not for StreamYard, which made everything kind of a lot simpler. So, more so than me, StreamYard, and my computer screen is doing all kinds of crazy shit. So I'm not sure if you guys are experiencing weird crap or not. But yeah, no, listen, everyone should get their voice out there. Don't have to have a YouTube channel. If you've always wanted to write. If you've always wanted to make a film, make a short film. Contribute to the conversation in a meaningful way. That's all I've always been saying, because I think we all can. And if you wait for Hollywood to do that work and provide something actually interesting, man, that's a losing battle. Okay, things are really going crazy on my side. I really, really apologize if this stream is becoming a cluster. I don't know. So, Mike, you should, because first of all, it's a British film, and second of all, it's based on a Peter Straub novel, who was a Englishman who came to live in New York and never went back home, and it just rocks. It's, in my opinion, the scariest film ever made. Now, it's not going to be true for everyone, but it hits me in all those spots, right? And it has, I think, the most traumatic opening of any horror film of all time. I just cannot imagine any film being able to. You certainly couldn't do it today. You couldn't do what that film does today. Are you guys still there? It just literally kicked me out. Let me know that I'm back live if I'm back live. Someone just tell me I'm okay. Yep, okay. Exactly. I gave like this full hearty like endorsement of StreamYard, and then of course it screws up. I apologize for that, guys. It really wasn't my doing, but I apologize for it anyway. So a question I got very recently from a friend of the show is, why don't you talk about bad books in the same way you talk about bad movies? This is a really fair point. Like, I've read more than my share of novels that I think are not successful or just outright badly written. I tend to read a lot of small press books, some self-published books. I'm always looking for that next thing, and unfortunately, the territory that comes with is some people are not firing on all cylinders yet. So there's a lot of work that I don't. But hold on, guys. Sorry about that. I'm back. This is a technology disaster of a night. Yeah. All right. But what it comes down to is I know the work that goes into and making any piece of art. What makes film a little bit more instantly criticizable to me is that the experience of watching a movie is very passive. People just sit down and they watch. And because of that, there's always going to be people who champion films that the rest don't like. It'll find its audience. Books, because they're not passive, have a much tougher time finding the audience that'll appreciate them. So to me, to go out of my way to call out a bad book or a writer that's just not ready to do the self-publishing thing, right? Which I'm not a proponent of self-publishing. I don't self-publish. I keep things in print after their traditional publishing has gone away, but I would never premiere a new work that way. But I don't want to step on those people's toes because I know the work that goes in and how hard it is to gain purchase. So yeah, I am definitely, I treat the two arts very differently. That is a fair criticism of me, but hopefully you understand a little bit about why I do. So, man, Universal really doesn't want anyone to talk about how bad that trailer was today, Big T. Yeah, something's happening. Something's hacking. And just let me know that I am really still back because I'm going to be paranoid from here on out. Though everything seems more stable at the moment. Another question I was actually asked, and this came off of my last appearance, I believe, on Region Free, although I've said it many times on Region Free. Do you really think Dawn of the Dead is boring, or are you just trolling? So, first off, let me say that Dawn of the Dead is not a bad film. It's a good film. I just find it boring. It's never been a film that I've really wanted to watch for its entire running length. I really like its opening, the Philadelphia tenements, and that is great. But it really slows down, and I don't really love the characters like other people seem to. So, I mean, Dawn of the Dead never connected with me like it did for an entire generation of filmmakers, but you can't not see its impact, and you can't not love it. I think the remake is a better film overall, and I know that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. We'll say the dead baby sequence is the dumbest thing in that movie and should have been exercised. It would have made the film way better. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm always going to be a Night of the Living Dead guy. I do like Day of the Dead. I think Day of the Dead is a fun, really broad, cartoony political drama that happens to involve zombies. But Night of the Living Dead is just a masterpiece, and there's even the mistakes in the movie, which there are continuity mistakes in that movie, all kind of work to make it feel kind of real in a strange way. If it was too overly glossy, it wouldn't have the same impact. So I do really think I'm always going to be a Night guy. How you feel about that movie is how I feel about Night of the Scarecrow. You mean Dark Night of the Scarecrow? The television movie? Because I will partially agree with you. I like I had a great time as a kid watching it, right? But every time I go back and try and rewatch it, I don't. It's just not connecting with me on that same level. I love the idea of it, and I love made-for-television horror of the 70s and early 80s. More the 70s than the 80s. I'm still waiting for my Blu-ray of Devil's Triangle, right? Satan's Triangle. Depends when you saw it, because it had both titles. Which, if you haven't seen that, that's a great made-for-television movie. I don't know. Jake says, Day has a reputation for being the darkest Romero Dead film. Why? Night is far bleaker. Yeah, I think that Day actually has the most sense of humor of the bunch. certainly the situation is bleaker, and I think that's where people are going. But I mean, it's a comedy for a lot of its runtime. I mean, everything is so exaggerated and bizarre, and I love it for swinging for the fences. But there's things I would change. The weird reggae score is kind of bewildering. The very end of the film, the quote unquote happy ending, is a little disjointed for me. But there's things I do really, really, really like. Dave asks, Lauren, do you like Hell High? I do like Hell High. It's not one of those things I reach for often, but I think it's fun. I tend to like movies with hell in the title. I think that's what it comes down to, between Hellfest and Hell Night and Hell High. There was a period when movies of a certain budget were being made, and that budgetary limitation was really forcing them to just figure out what the nuts and bolts they needed were. And today, because everything can be done on computers, and budget makes a difference whether it looks good made by a computer or not. But a little bit of that has really, well, a lot of it has really gone away. And the inventiveness of really figuring out what are the basics we need. I imagine, a film like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, right? Which, far from a perfect movie. But the reason we like that movie is because it feels so scrappy and like an underdog and like it was assembled from spare parts. I don't think there's anything like that today. At least not domestically. So. Damn Good Coffee Time says, greetings, love the screen cap for this video, Lauren. Bonus points for anyone who can name the 2 movies that I captured stills off of to make that. Now, they are manipulated, so that's going to be a tough one, but yeah, day ends with them on a beach. But does it? I've always felt like Day's ending might be a weird misdirect. Did they really not make it out? And this is part of that fantasy that the calendar represented, and maybe that's why the reggae music, maybe it is a darker movie, but it just doesn't really land its ending like it's supposed to. I don't know. I take it pretty literally. Dave says that the new Hell High has a great new Blu-ray release. I'll look into that. Again, I don't reach for it often, so it's going to be a price issue with me. I am very price conscious in movies simply because I want to own as many films that I love as possible. And to do that, I have a budget. So a lot of people will actually be baffled by the fact that 4Ks get released all the time of movies I love now. And I won't go near them because the boutique label's releasing $50 titles. I can easily buy 3 movies on Amazon during a sale for that same price. And at the end of the day, we're running out of time for physical media. I don't know if anyone saw the news last week, but for the last week of reported numbers, physical media sold 40% less in dollars than it did the same week in 2021. A 40% dip is cataclysmic. We're getting into really rocky times. Now, mostly that's hitting the big titles from the major distributors and not the boutiques. So we, as a community, might not be feeling it yet. But guess what, guys? I mean, walk into a Walmart and see how many square foot is devoted to movies these days. That's a sign of things to come. And the boutiques will eventually be weeded out as well, especially because they're pricing themselves out. There's so many titles that come out that if they came out at $22, I would pick them up without thinking. But, once you start asking for $35 and $40, I go into Barnes and Noble and see that Arrow wall, which was right under a sign saying Criterion. And I look at all those titles, and there's so many titles out. I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool title. $40. Nope. And I think if we wait for sales on all of it, that's also kind of sending the wrong message, because then it's just the business models to set prices high so they can say 50% off, which brings it to a normal price. That's not really a sale, right? Though I do give a lot of credit to the companies that do go to really lower prices. Kino Kino's sales tend to be real sales where you can pick up titles for $12 on Blu-ray. That's really cool. You got half of it. And I thought the half that people wouldn't get. So The Innocents is correct. I love The Innocents with a passion. And that is a great Criterion release. If you've never seen it, maybe watch it first because, again, black and white, old, actually scary. You'll feel things. Real downer ending. So, of course, I love it. Unfortunately, it's too many films have borrowed blatantly from it, and at least one in the last couple of years remade it horrifically badly. It's not Village of the Damned, the other one. If you look at the outline of the figure right behind Just Talking Genre, it's a very recognizable figure in the genre, but I've darkened it a lot, so you might not be able to come up with it. That's completely reasonable. And Jake asks, have you seen Black Pit of Dr. M from 59? I saw it around Halloween last year. I think it should be discussed more in horror circles. I've not, at least not under that title. It's not ringing a bell. I guess I'm going to have to consult the horror encyclopedia after I'm done here, and after reading the paragraph about the movie, search it down, because anything from 59 that's called The Black Pit of Dr. M. Is it a Dr. Malbus film? I see. This is why I love the Community. Every time I think everyone just wants to talk about Halloween and Friday the 13th, like someone pops up with something that from the golden era that I'm super excited about. And Sean says, I recently rewatched The Ninth Configuration. Love that film, as I know you do. Yes. Do yourself a favor, pick up Blatty's novel under either title, Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane, which is what it was really titled as, or The Ninth Configuration, which is what it was published as a tie-in, and kind of has maintained that title since. They are different in that the Ninth Configuration copies let Blatty actually use the swear words, whereas they actually censor the swear words with asterisks in the Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane paperback and hardcover. Awesome reads, great films, and I wish more writers would direct their own work, or at least play a big hand in it. Because Blatty is a textbook example. He was very involved with the original Exorcist. He directed Ninth Configuration and Exorcist 3, and they're all masterpieces. Now, that said, we're not all William Peter Blatty. In fact, probably no one is William Peter Blatty, but damn, they're great films. And I like the idea of creative people who actually created something, so kind of have flesh in the game, treating the material the way they would like their material treated. I think that's a great solution. Before someone says Stephen King, understand that Stephen King was at a place in his life when making Maximum Overdrive was what he was going to make. As a kid, I loved Maximum Overdrive, by the way. As an adult, I kind of look at it and try to recapture my childish enthusiasm for the film, but it's not really quite there. Jacob says, the woman in the black dress from The Innocents must have been Kurosawa's inspiration for the ghost in Pulse. Very, very likely, but also I think there is a strong tradition of the mourning women in European folklore, which is ghosts of women who appear at funerals, at the back of funerals, but they're just they're mourning themselves is the concept, but they show up at everyone's funeral and no one knows them, and then when people try and find them, they can't find them because they were ghosts. I think that that mythology probably reached down, and of course, you know, the movie The Woman in Black, the great television movie from Britain, which if you haven't seen that's freaking brilliant. I'm not talking about the Hammer remake, although that's okay, and even the sequel to the remake is okay. They're not the best new Hammer. Quiet Ones is the best new Hammer, which is a phenomenal film. But Anthony Oliver is trying to win my heart over with any hope for a Hellfest sequel one day. Unfortunately, the direct word right from the people who would most know is it's never going to happen. The movie made back its budget. It didn't end up costing the studio anything, but it made basically nothing in its theatrical run. It did well on home video. It was supported by a lot of retailers really well, which is the reason you saw Blu-rays and DVDs on your Walmart and Best Buy shelves forever, it felt like, right? That movie was around forever in their new release wall. It sold well and they kept it around. But it never really translated into the kind of cult audience it should have. And it's kind of comparable to The Empty Man, except The Empty Man actually got its cult audience, whereas Hellfest really didn't. I would love to see it happen. It's never going to happen. Yeah. Jessica says, you can't just walk into a store anymore and find physical DVD or CD, and it's heartbreaking. You know, it is. And it's not just about buying the physical discs, to me, which is one of the reasons I get a little bit depressed about the whole thing. Like, we go online when there's a sale. Oh, there's the Vinegar Syndrome sale, and a bunch of people put up videos with them clicking on links. Well, in the old days, you know, when I was a kid, you'd go to a record store or a Saturday matinee video store, or even just the video rental store, whether it was a mom and pop or even a Blockbuster, and you'd be in the store with other people. Maybe you talked to other people, maybe you wouldn't, but there was a communal atmosphere. And maybe you heard something being played in the record store that you'd never heard before, and you walked up to the counter and said, hey, what the hell is this? Because I want it. Or maybe you learned that you didn't like something and you didn't have to blind buy it and then, you know, find a friend who might like it. But we've missed that social aspect, and we've replaced it with something very virtual. And as much as I love you guys, and I never want to lose this community, it's different. It's definitely different. Good night, Mike. If you're still with us, I really appreciate you jumping on, man, and saying hi and contributing to the conversation. Sean says, Exorcist 3, definitely agree. Which cut do you prefer, the theatrical or Legion cut? Theatrical. So I had a wonderful evening where I went to a reading, and I've told the story a million times. I'm sorry, you've probably heard it. I went to a reading in Philadelphia. William Peter Blatty was reading from Demeter, which was brand new in hardcover, and it was not well attended. So afterwards, during the signing portion, I actually had some time with him, and we talked about Exorcist 3 and Legion. My copy of Legion is signed by him, and it says, to Lauren, who has excellent taste in fiction, in literature, William Peter Blatty. Yeah, it's one of my prized possessions because he is a god to me. He did not like the theatrical version at all. He thought that Morgan Creek had completely disemboweled the film. He didn't like the Father Morning character, although he you know, the performance he thought was awesome, but he just hated having to include the exorcism scene. And he hated the fact that their logic was, you're calling the film The Exorcist, but there's no exorcism in it. He hated that. But I got to tell you, it's a tighter narrative. If you know Legion, the novel, you know that it ends with simply, and spoilers, if you're going to read the novel, just maybe mute for a moment. The Gemini's father dies of a heart attack or whatever. And the whole thing is, the Gemini's whole point of killing people was to shame his father. There's still a line in the movie about it. And there's a bigger point in the book. And when his father dies, the connection, the transaction he made with Pazuzu is broken because he has no reason to continue his killing spree. And that's kind of why he leaves Damien, and Damien dies of his wounds that he, his wounds from falling down the steps on M Street. It's kind of an anticlimactic, but it works in a literary sense really well. And the way Blatty writes it, it really sells. But it wouldn't work for screen. And even Blatty knew that. So his Legion cut, or the director's cut, doesn't do that either. So, that story has like 3 endings now: the book, the theatrical, and the composited director's cut. The big shock, I think, too, is that I don't know who thought not having Jason Miller in that movie would have worked. Everyone talks about Brad Dourif, and you should. It's an awesome performance, so intense. But Jason Miller's really awesome in that, too. And the fact that, he didn't make a lot of films in his career. He was a stage actor, but he came back and he just nailed it. We don't talk about his performance nearly enough. Someone just watched Bird with the Crystal Plumage for the first time. But I've lost it. There we go. Well, we're just going to start here with Jake says, Neil's Woman in Black is the first horror film I remember seeing. That film and Crisscross solidified horror and noir as my favorite genres. The Woman in Black standing over the bed, one of the most just ball-drainingly terrifying moments in film history. If you don't consider pissing yourself, there's something wrong with you. That is scary. And anyone who says, it didn't scare me. Yeah. You're either lying or you were like high on meth when you watched the movie, because that's a terrifying moment. Dave says, watched for the first time last night, Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Hope you had fun with it. Bird is a film that's like some of the comedy-laden like character scenes don't play as well today as they did. But I think overall it's still one of Argento's finest works. It's not Deep Red, right? Deep Red is really solid, but Bird is really good. It's the best of the Animal trilogy, easily. I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you got a hold of it. Hopefully, I don't know how you watched it, but whether you streamed it or you had the Arrow release, but it's a great film that has never looked better on any of those than it looks on any of those formats. So I originally saw it on a grainy VHS tape that was dubbed off of a multi-generational dupe from a Laserdisc, because it was not a film that was available anymore. And I wish the first time I'd watched it, it was the cleaned up, beautiful print that everyone else seems to be able to join now. Stone Gassman in the house. He's saying, good evening, Lauren and everyone in this chat. Stone is a warrior in the good fight and a brother in arms. So tip my hat to you, sir. If I wore a hat, I don't really wear a hat, but Griffith has a question, a literary question. Why do you love Brownback's Indifference of Heaven? Because I finished reading the book, and after the early chapter, the book stopped being horror and turns into pure fantasy. It turns into really gross fantasy. Yeah. So I don't think it actually abandons being horror, but my definition of horror, of course, is if a piece of art elicits dark emotions, and that book does definitely stick with dark emotions. So if you don't know, Indifference of Heaven was a kind of a huge deal in the horror community and the literary community when it came out. A lot of people consider it Gary Brownback's masterpiece. I do. It was republished by Leisure, in a sanitized title of In Silent Graves. Has great reputation and it deserves it. So I read horror and I watch horror movies, and even listen to dark crime audio dramas, because there's a Sirius satellite radio channel that plays them, to feel things that I can't feel in normal life that are on the dark spectrum, and because that's what I'm drawn to for whatever reason. There's definitely things that Indifference of Heaven made me feel that I could not feel any other place. And I think that's the greatest compliment you can pay to any artist at any time. If you look at a great Goya painting, Saturn devouring his son, you look at that, you'll feel things that you can't capture anywhere else. Stone says, is Game Shot Stop the only one left that has physical media? I don't even know. I don't even know. Do they? I don't go into GameStops because I don't play video games, but I don't know. Ben Grimm says, I know the writer of Hellfest. He's a cousin of mine. Well, there was 6 writers overall on the film. But tell your cousin he's a hero of mine. And that his work didn't go in vain. Definitely. Jessica says a Hellfest sequel would be amazing. Skull. Yep. Unfortunately, that movie came out 2 weeks before Halloween 2018, and the mass appeal of something called Halloween, with Jamie Lee Curtis back in it and John Carpenter out there promoting the film, that was the slasher film people went to go see that year. I didn't even know Hellfest was coming out. I was in Egg Harbor, New Jersey. I was on deployment for work, and I would go to the theater because I didn't know anyone down there and wasn't making friends at work, that's for sure. So I'd go to the theater, and if there was anything like action, horror, sci-fi, even the superheroes, anything I can distract myself with. And I saw a poster for this movie called Hellfest, and it was coming out next week. And I walked in thinking it was a vampire film because the poster, features a vampire as part of the entryway. So that's what I thought the movie was. I was like, this is going to be some Lost Boys bullshit, and I'm going to hate myself for saying it, but I'm going to go see it. My apologies to Lost Boys fans, but I hate that movie. So I walked in, and I was pleasantly surprised by one of my favorite films of all time. Not going to make an argument that it's one of the best films of all time. It's not. I just connect with that movie. I love the characters. I love the setup. I love that it takes its time with the characters. I love that it doesn't have a huge body count. It has an impactful body count. I love the colors, and I love the fact that it feels like Halloween more than any other film, and certainly more than any film called Halloween. That movie feels like the season. It even feels more like the season than Trick or Treat, and that's saying something because that movie, I think, gets it down too. But I love Hellfest. So we can stop with the drinking game because most of you are drunk now because I've mentioned Hellfest. Maybe I'll mention Game Over a few times and you'll be really drunk. And Stone says, tell him we need a Hellfest too. Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm way behind in this chat, aren't I? Hey, he also helped write that Leatherface movie everyone loves. Maybe don't talk to him about my feelings on that movie. Okay. Sean says, that's so cool. Would have loved to have met him. I do think the Brad Dourif scenes in the theatrical version is better, and I like Jason Miller back in it. Yeah, it's pretty much how I go. I think that a creative person like William Peter Blatty's never going to be completely happy because he wasn't completely happy with The Exorcist either. He felt that William Friedkin's more exploitative moments cheapened the film. He didn't like the pea soup. He didn't like the head twist. So I'm not going to answer this, Jake, only for the reasons that I said before, but I will tell, but I'll kind of answer it. So It by Stephen King was the novel that broke my streak of loving King and made me kind of cynical about reading everything that he does. Now I treat him kind of like I treat all the writers that I like, which is that if there's a title that really hits me that I love, I that sounds awesome. Then I'm going to read it, right? But I was just like a lot of people. I just picked up every King novel that came out and devoured it, and I wasn't reading a lot of other people. And then it came out, and I was a young man, and I did not like that novel at all. I thought it was cheap and kind of cliche. I hate the monster can be whatever scares you the most bullshit. That is just, I don't want to actually create a villain. I'll just make it whatever you want it to be. The giant turtle with the universe on it, it was like weird, like, I don't know, more like Robert E. Howard riffing on Lovecraft's mythos stuff. It just didn't work for me. So it is one of those novels that has never worked for me, and it works for a lot of people, and the derivative media of it works for even more, but not for me. Yep, Sean is saying the Deep Red is his favorite Argento. I'm still a Suspiria guy, but Deep Red is the best of his giallos, definitely, and it's top tier. Stone wants my quick take on Body Heat. I owned it on VHS, and that's the last time I owned the movie, but I did watch it fairly often. It's for that erotic thriller subgenre, it's actually kind of a real movie, and a lot of those movies weren't. So I like Body Heat. I just can't say it's a favorite. I think it's a film that people find at a certain point in their life, and may become fixated for a while with it, and then move on. And I think there are movies like that. I think we all have that movie that we all came home from school and watched every day before we had to go to work. So you watch like 20 minutes of the same movie every day for like 6 months, and then you never wanted to see that movie ever again in your life, but you did it to yourself. A lot of people excited that you're doing that, though. Yeah, definitely. There's a hot take. I think Four Flies on Grey Velvet is the best of the Animal trilogy. Okay. Oh, wow, and you're comparing it with with Leopard Man. Okay. I like Four Flies. I just think it's the dialogue is the weakest, which is a little bit unfair because it's all translated. I get it. And the performances are weaker than the other two films in the series. So a lot of people showing Stone some love and some questions. And Dave is saying he bought the Massacre at Central High Steelbook because of the review. The regular edition of that is coming out. It's a great film. If you're a fan of Heathers and you've never seen Massacre at Central High, you probably want to do yourself a favor and see where Heathers came from. I do like Heathers more, but that movie is the precedent. Oh, and that's what Stone is saying. Wow. Again, I'm getting the chat still all out of order, so things are not fixed on my end. Darren asks my thoughts on The Exorcist, the version you've never seen. I don't prefer it to the theatrical cut. I hate a lot of the added subliminals, really distracting and unnecessary, and even I think counterproductive to the overall effect of the movie. Especially the one in the fan above the stove of Pazuzu's face blinking. Why? Yeah, no. But that said, I have to say something about that. That was a big experiment because that was really before the days of massive re-releases of a lot of films. Like that came out as if it was a new release again. And it did exceptionally well. And it's a film that deserved to be discovered by a whole new audience. And I think it got it done. Unfortunately, I would have liked them just to put out the original version. But again, with that wouldn't probably have warranted a re-release of that sort. So it kind of is what it is. It's still an excellent film. It's just not one of the best horror films ever made in that version, probably. Again, and for stupid decisions. Davern says, what did you make of X and Fresh, Lauren, if you've seen them? I haven't seen Fresh. I saw X. So I like X. X is one of those things that the horror community was primed to like before it came out. So it's got a little bit of an unfair advantage out there, I think. And I'm not bashing it because I did like it. Right now it's hovering towards the bottom of my top 10 films of the year, but it's still on my top 10 films of the year. There's just a few things in it I wish they'd done differently because it has a great sensibility about it. I wish the alligator was gone. I don't think the alligator works. I mean, it's a reference to Eaten Alive, the great Tobe Hooper's film, but I don't think it really works for the tone of the movie. And the barn murder makes no goddamn sense. And it's not like it's like something out of like Friday the 13th, New Beginning. That's what it's like. So this is a completely improbable. Things have to happen in exactly the right order for that sequence to occur. It doesn't work, and it's cheaper than the rest of the movie around it. A lot of people were saying, "Is this like elder shaming?" And I was like, you know what? Stop. Someone has to be our villains. Let the old people be it for a while. That's cool. Whatever. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how often I'll watch it, but I do like the film. I haven't purchased it at this point. I'm sure enough copies are out there that it'll be available cheap on the used market. And that's probably I have to find a Redbox that's still operating, and I'll just buy a used copy out of Redbox, which I do a lot of because you can buy movies for $3. I don't care about the artwork. I know everyone out there is freaking out, but I love movies, not artwork. Let's see. A lot of love for X out there in the comments. And a lot of talk about the return of Fruit Brute this October to the General Mills Monster cereals line. We haven't seen them since 2013, and before that, we have to go all the way back to 1981. I don't have my cup here, my glass, but I guess everyone knows I'm a huge Monster cereals guy. It was one of the ways that I can enjoy like monster culture year-round as a kid, because I'm old enough for those cereals to have been available year-round. I'm a Blueberry guy, and if you're not, there's probably something wrong with you. There's enough strawberry and chocolate flavored cereals out there. There's only one blueberry flavored cereal. But I'm very excited. And no Yummy Mummy this year. I had heard a rumor, and it's just a rumor, that there might be snack cakes this year. General Mills Monsters snack cakes. And I'd be down for that, because I do like that. Every year I do buy the blueberry fruit roll-ups, and they're pretty good. And truer words have never been spoken. Blueberry rocks. I think I finally caught up to the chat. Sam's out in the chat saying hello. Sam, I hope everything's good out there. Hope you're enjoying your break from the internet. Although you're on the internet, I guess. From being in front of the camera on the internet. Oh, that's horrible. I can sympathize. I guess a little just update on that is that I'm doing a lot better. I finished my antibiotics regimen. Still get exhausted a little bit too early, but I'm doing a lot better. So for everyone who did send messages, and there was a lot of them, I do appreciate that. But you're not getting rid of me just yet. Ask in a year. I'd buy a Frankenberry cake. Yep. All right, so Chris is isolating off-site in an undisclosed location, somewhere safe from the prying eyes of bacteria and viruses. So this actually is almost a question that was asked, but another question I had saved up was, what is the best lesser-known Lucio Fulci movie? So lesser known is a weird thing with Fulci, because like his lesser known things are like rock and roll comedies from the late 50s. Okay. The man made a lot of movies before he found the horror genre. Spy comedies, a lot of rock and roll films, a lot of softcore sex films and sex comedies. But if I had to pick an inside the genre, like the lesser known Fulci that you should seek out, Seven Notes in Black, or The Psychic, which is the title you're probably going to find it under. It's not a gory film. So that's one thing people are not expecting from Lucio Fulci, but it's his best actually filmmaking, his best image composition, his best storytelling, his best directing actors. It's a pretty remarkable film, and fans of Scanners will find something to enjoy definitely in it. I'll let you discover. It's a great Poe-inspired movie, even though it's not based specifically on any single Poe story. It kind of amalgamates a few, including The Black Cat. Pretty hardcore, and I think it's one of the moodier Fulci's movies. So. Yeah. And Jake agrees on the first half of it. Contraband. Contraband is a weird movie, huh? That blowtorch scene is what everyone focuses on, but the rest of the movie, it's a really, really hardcore, nasty gangster film. It's also kind of a remake of his Western, Four of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. They're kind of really similar in plot if you think about it. It's kind of a little bit crazy. All right. I only have one more question written down that I've collected. See, I told you, I don't get a lot of questions. But this one is going to be a big one. Oh, wait. Before we do that, though, Stone says his vote is one on top of the other. It is his first Giallo. It's I would always prefer Lizard in a Woman's Skin. Oh, but yeah, no, it's that's a pretty psychedelic mind fuck of a movie. I like it. So the question I had written down here is, you joke that you like when animals are killed in horror movies because people are offended by it. How do you feel about the real animal deaths in Cannibal Holocaust? Okay, so this is going to take some explanation to get all the way out here. I'm a big animal lover in real life. When we're talking about fiction, I divorce completely fiction from reality. And if something offends me or disgusts me or disturbs me, that's a good thing, because that's why I'm going to the movies, right? To feel things in a safe environment. You know, it's different. You know, okay, so when you're driving to work and you see a dead possum on the side of the road, there's a moment you're like, oh, that's horrible. But then you forget it immediately because it's a dead possum on the side of the road and these things happen. Right? So that's kind of how I feel about Cannibal Holocaust. And I'll come back to that analogy in a second. But I think that if you're going to put an animal on screen in a horror movie, you don't have to kill it. Fictionally, of course. The actor animal should survive in every case, in my opinion. But horror films are made to disturb, you know, to make people feel distress and all those dark emotions. And the movie I always go back to that I hated for not committing was Crawl, that Sam Raimi produced crocodile movie. There's a little dog in it that's constantly put in danger, or you get the impression that it's in danger, just to get your reaction. But it won't. Then at the end, the dog makes it out fine, and it's just cheap. It's like a really cheap, dramatic tool for any writer or filmmaker to make. Oh, people don't want you to hurt the dog or the cat, so we're not going to do that. To me, that's not. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly why you introduce a character, an animal character, if they're not fair game. Now, that's not saying you have to kill them, but it's saying that they should have a purpose in the story. And if it's just to look cute so people ooh and ah and worry that it's going to get her, it's cheap. It's cheap writing, cheap filmmaking. Don't do that. Now, Cannibal Holocaust is not the first film to kill animals on screen by a long shot. And it's not even the first film of the cycle it's attached to. The Mondo Cane series, you know, didn't even have narrative. They just were scenes of brutality. Basically no different than some of the shock sites that exist on the internet today, except people went to the movie theater to see them and then later rented them on video cassette. I was never a fan of the Faces of Death thing. I'd always heard that the Faces of Death were mostly fake. That myth never really, I don't know. I maybe just in my town, the people who went to horror they always said it was fake. So I never really put too much faith. But the animal footage in some cases is real, and some of the accident footage is real. Never wanted to see that. I want stories. I want to feel things. But just the shock of seeing real people die or real animals die was never my thing. So I'm not a big Mondo guy, except for the movie Mondo New York, which features I guess there's a geek in it that kills chickens. But other than that, it's just freaky people from New York. That's a fun movie. But Man from Deep River, of course, came out before Cannibal Holocaust, and that has real animal death. And then after Cannibal Holocaust, you have Cannibal Ferox, and a string of cannibal films that used, in most cases, stock footage of real animal death. Not a fan. necessarily of any of the derivatives. Cannibal Ferox, I think, is fun because of John Morgan's performance, but it's basically just a remake of Cannibal Holocaust without the found footage aspect. So the thing is, Cannibal Holocaust uses the real animal death to make you suspend your disbelief to an outrageous level. So at the end of the films, the fake slaughter of the cast feels more real because it is shot in exactly the same way. And it, while it's not, I don't think any of us were really convinced they killed real people for the movie. It does have a sense of reality that I'm not sure you could get any other way exactly. So as horrible as it may seem, there might have been a legitimate artistic purpose to killing the real animals in the movie. Do I think we should do that ever again now that that artistic point has been made? No. Do I think it's even justifiable that they did it the first time? No. But the movie exists. And it's a damn good horror movie. It's effective on all the ways it's supposed to, and it makes you feel like you need a shower afterwards, which I wish more movies did. You know, to affect you that much that you actually feel bad. That's power. That's power in art, and I wish more films were just bold enough to live out their vision. Perhaps not in that way, right? So my big answer is Cannibal Holocaust exists. Those animals are long dead. No one can turn back the clock. Do I think that movie should have done it? Probably not. Should anyone do it again? No. But doesn't mean we throw out that art. Now, there's someone out there who's going to call me out because of my feelings about John Landis, right? I am going to say there's a difference between animals and people, and I'm just going to leave it at that. If you don't feel that way, if you're one of those people that loudly proclaims that you'd rather, people die than animals, I don't really believe you're serious or that you've had the life experiences to justify that statement, but you do you. Maybe you really do feel that way, and I suggest you probably need some professional help if you feel that way. But, the ferret or whatever the hell that is that gets skewered on screen, I'm not going to equate that with a person. Just not going to do it. Jake says, Holocaust isn't the last film to do it either. Come and See came out in the late 80s. They shot a cow on camera. They use the sound of its wheezing and gurgling in the sound mix. Yeah, Apocalypse Now. There's a ton of movies that have real life animal death in them. Cannibal Holocaust gets singled out because it's the most egregious example, I think. It is pretty brutal. Big Crack Rock says, I haven't watched Cannibal Holocaust in probably 20 years, but it was just the tribespeople killing animals for food as they normally would, is from what I understand. So, the filmmakers did goad them into it, and they were paid to do what they were paid to do. Whether the animals really got used as food or not, we'll never really know. That's the story that the producers put out there. Rogerio Deodato states that he never wanted to do that, and he didn't shoot those scenes. That the producers were paid another guy to shoot those scenes. I don't know what the truth is. I kind of think it was just a different time, and people did things differently. Anthony says, anyone seen the Scarlett Johansson film Under the Skin, set in Scotland? Really strange sci-fi horror trip. Yeah, I've seen it. It's one of those films that you see once and I think you're good most of the time. There are, there's experience movies, right? Whereas watching them a second time kind of takes some of their power away. I think that's probably the case there. And there's some talk about the snake in Friday the 13th. So the story about the snake's owner not knowing they were going to kill the snake, I find that story sort of hard to believe. So if you were asked to bring, you're an animal handler and you're asked to bring an animal to the set, what's the first question you ask? What'll it be doing, right? Because you want to bring the right animal that can do what is being asked. Now, I don't know how much you can train a snake, but you can ask, well, what kind of snake? How large? Well, what will it be doing in the scene? The idea that they lied to him about it seems, I don't know. It seems weird. And, Tazo cut that snake in half because it was cheaper than making a fake snake. Do I feel like we should be cutting snakes in half? Nope. But again, if you accidentally have ever run over a snake mowing the lawn, which I think many of us have, you feel bad for a little bit and then you go on with your life. I wouldn't steer towards the snake. I would steer away from it. But if it happened, and it has happened to me, it is what it is, and it is brilliantly used in the film because it perfectly completes the analogy of Mrs. Voorhees being decapitated at the end of the film and what has to happen, right? That's how you deal with the snake in the cabin, is you have to behead it. And Alice has to get to the point where she's not shrieking and calling for help. She has to be strong enough to do it herself, which by the end of the film she is. And the tea kettle scene is the most important scene in that film. And you can go to a much older video of mine for an explanation of why that is. But if he was lied and he brought his pet snake and they cut it in half, that's a freaking horrible thing. Jake says, I believe the story is either bullshit or the guy is dumb. I've met some dumb people in my life, so who knows? I don't know. Also, how did they set up the scene that he wouldn't have known what was coming? It just doesn't hold water to me. I think it's something that someone came up with because it's a good story, right? I don't know. And Stakey is in the house with his hi. Steak, it's always good to see your beautiful face, even if I'm just seeing a thumbnail of your great channel. That if anyone out there watching this channel has not subscribed to the Off the Grill podcast featuring the beautiful and talented Steak Sauce, you need to change that immediately. I think most of you probably are, but he when he's not talking about wrestling, it's an engaging and excellent show. And when he's talking about wrestling, he's talking about wrestling. So I hit the thumbs up button and I leave and come back later to see if he's still talking about wrestling. And that's how that goes. But Steak is one of the cornerstone members of our community. He's an amazing force. And he was one of those guys that, got the message that we needed more voices. And God damn it, I'm proud that he's out there. I'm happy that he's out there making noise. Devon, Company of Wolves. I always say this. People say American Werewolf in London or Howling. If you make me pick between those two, I pick the Howling. But I like Company of Wolves more than either of those films. I love it. I think it's a tremendous film. I love its dreamy atmosphere. I love that it's not a traditional narrative. It feels like a dream or a fairy tale. And I love that it really will scramble your brain if you let it. I love it. And really, Neil Jordan's career is fascinating, right? Right. On a lighter note, I know you're a fan of the Final Destination series. How would you rank them? I don't remember any past the first two. The worst time you're going to have at a Final Destination film is a good time. I don't know. I'm not going to probably be able to do a off the cuff ranking. The second film is my favorite. That and the very last one is probably my second favorite. And the rest kind of fall in the middle somewhere. I think the first film is cool for setting everything up, but it doesn't have the I don't know, the misdirections and the deaths that are quite as extreme as the later series, which I like a lot. I mean, Final Destination is just Friday the 13th without a killer wearing a mask, right? I mean, they are as formulaic as anything ever made, but they're a lot of fun. And understand we're getting a new film and perhaps a television series. So if you're a Final Destination fan, there you go. And most people don't realize that there was a paperback novel that's not an adaptation of any of the existing films that was put out by Black Flame. So if you're a big Final Destination fan, there's another piece of media out there that you can definitely hunt down. No, you haven't. Steak, you haven't been trying to cut down on the wrestling talk. You don't care about my feelings, and I'm okay with that because I'm a big boy. Trying to get back on the diet, be less of a big boy, but I'm a big boy. I can handle it. Anthony Oliver, what is my favorite Stephen King adaptation to the big screen? I mean, at some point we all have to get past the fact that Shawshank Redemption is kind of like one of the best films ever made, right? It's not a horror film, but goddamn, it's way better than the novella it's based on. What it does by setting up a central villain in the warden rather than going through the rotating through villain wardens like the novella does, that alone is just mind-bogglingly good. Great performances all around. It's definitely the best King adaptation. Inside the genre, however, I mean, listen, I love The Shining, and you know which version I'm talking about. But Kubrick did his own thing, right? It is an adaptation, but it's not a direct adaptation. I love Dead Zone. I think it's not a Cronenberg film that feels like balls to the wall Cronenberg, but it's very, very good. I love Carrie. I think De Palma brought all the right stuff to it. And some people don't like the mother crucifixion at the end. I have no problem. Do wish the Rain of Stones was still in the movie, but can't have everything. But we get the great jump scare instead. I don't know. The problem is, when you ask me that, you're saying which King novels do you like? Because if I don't like the novels, like Dreamcatcher, then I'm not gonna like the movie, right? I will say that Cujo, Louis Teague's Cujo, is an amazing film that I think betters the novel as well. King has actually, in the first half of King's career, he was incredibly lucky. And then in the second half of the career, not so much. Davern says, I love these solo Lorne shows. It's more undiluted Lorne. Yeah, you can go wrong with undiluted Lorne. You definitely want to cut it with something, baby laxative or something, because too much of me and you'll end up in a hospital bed, I promise you. No, we're not going to put that on screen. Okay, Jake says, instead of getting a third, fourth, fifth adaptation of a King book that we've seen 50,000 times, how about we get an adaptation of The Long Walk, whatever? They tried a couple years ago to get that off the ground, and it didn't. So, yeah, look, Long Walk would be a great film, I think. I think a literal adaptation of The Running Man, which I heard was at one point in it being discussed as a television series, but doing the original story, not the Schwarzenegger movie, which is basically not the novella at all. I'd like that. It would complete with the ending on the plane that's gross as hell and mean-spirited. I would love that. But you know what? I'm glad that Black Phone got made so that Joe Hill was adapted rather than his father for once. But I really would like to see some of the great authors who are still alive today who've really brought so much to the genre get their work adapted. So, can we get an adaptation of Cypher by Kathy Koja or Descent by Jeff Long? Can we get that to happen? That would be nice. I'd appreciate that. I don't know how the hell you'd do it, but get House of Leaves made, right? And what happened to all? What happened to that trend of adapting horror novels for a budget and getting them out there and that elevating the writers? What happened to that? I don't know. River says, hey, I tried watching Halloween Kills the other night for the first time. I made it about 15 minutes and couldn't watch anymore. I watched all the way through. I am jealous of your decision. I know people want to like the new trilogy, and maybe they do. Maybe they're having a blast with it. But I think we should like take that goodwill and apply it to something that's trying a little bit harder, because those movies are not trying very hard. And from what I hear about Ends, which I've tried to avoid knowing as much as I knew about Kills, about Ends, there's two decisions that I've heard about. Oh my god, I don't know if any of the supporters are going to be able to weather this storm. It's pretty brutally not good. I won't spoil, but you can find it out there now. And when I first heard it, it wasn't anywhere, but if you search hard enough, you'll find what I'm talking about. Jake says he wants a bleak adaptation of Running Man or Roadwork. Absolutely. But you can't adapt House of Blues. I think you can. I'm seeing a lot of like picture in picture, and I'm seeing like a lot of slow-mo and sped ups. I think you can use every film trick. Basically, you got to get Oliver Stone to employ every trick he did in making Natural Born Killers, and I think you could make House of Leaves. It'd probably be 5 hours long, and only 6 of us would watch it, but you could do it. What happened to laughter? It lost its S. Clearly. Yeah, Joe Hill did have one of his stories adapted for the Shudder shows. The first season of Creepshow actually was all adaptations of existing short stories. David Shaw's Finger is like my favorite of the season, and I love that short story. I've loved it ever since I read it in Seeing Red. But again, they've gone away from that. The last season, they were all new stories. They weren't adapting already published short stories, and I think that's a big miss. I think you can look at the series declining quality and kind of see it. And mind you, I still love the series, but that first season is way better than the second or third season. Who's the genre director that has Matthews goes the cows? You need someone with a really dark sense of absurdism. I don't know. I don't think Hollywood goes near that, right? It's kind of like Brian Asman's Man, Fuck This House, which has so much heat behind it. But I don't see Hollywood doing it. Not just because of the title. I mean, just because I just don't see them doing it. Pillsbury Doughboy Pancake Surprise asks, do you think I make good cookies? No. And Ben Grimm says Edgar Wright is doing a Running Man remake currently. Is that where that led? Because it's like 2 years ago, I think I heard about a project with Running Man. Is that the television project? I don't know. Cows would be an IFC midnight movie. Hollywood Inc. Yeah, no, clearly not. So I guess I just want to talk about one more thing tonight, and then I'm going to let you guys go. There's a lot of programming choices tonight, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes so much. But I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about kind of where the community is going, and kind of this channel's place in it. The community has gotten wider, which is awesome, and more people have come on board, which is awesome. This channel is always going to be what it is. If I or Sam am fascinated by something, whether it's by a guest or a piece of work or talking about, the mechanics of how a movie or a book works, we're going to do that. But the community is a lot of things now that it never has been before. And it's beautiful. You can watch people just get together and have a good time like friends, and these people, so it's fun. You feel like you're part of that conversation. It's awesome. It's not really where I'm at. I'm very proud that we started kind of the community stream thing. I mean, I wasn't the first to do it, but I think a lot grew out of those community streams and some of the events in them. I still intend to do one a quarter of those, but I'm just, there's enough places to get that I don't think I need to host. And I know that might disappoint people, but I think I'm better kind of staying in my lane. And I hope that you guys enjoy what I bring. I hope that's why you're here. But I'm currently working on something new for the channel, which is a longer form video about a subject I hope will interest you. It's not about something from the 30s or from India, so don't worry. It's something very accessible, something that I think a lot of you have been asking for my thoughts on. And it's going to be much more in depth, and it's meaty. So if I haven't done as much smaller uploads recently, partially it's been my health, but it's also been because I've been working on this other thing, and I'm trying to put together a really good-looking production because I think that's also kind of where I want this channel to go now. Additionally, there'll be more personnel around the Visited by Voices studios. You've already met Jeff Bradley, who's in real life, he's kind of one of my partners in crime in writing and creating. And there'll be more people coming on board to share kind of the platform of Visited by Voices. And here's my invitation out there. If any of you want to be involved on the channel, reach out to me. My doors are open. You can contact me through Twitter, or you can email me directly, visitedbyvoices@gmail.com. And, we'll see what we can do, because I'd really like to continue to grow the community. And those of you who want to have these conversations about the stuff we covered today, whether it's 70s television horror or adapting great novels or the Alien versus Predator movies, that's this corner of the community, whereas the topics just roll. I'm proud of that, and that's what I want to do. But I also I wouldn't mind having some company, and I kind of think of Visited by Voices as more of a network than just a platform for myself. And that's where I think it's going, and that's where I'd like your help to head it there. So anyone who wants to come on board, let's talk. I mean, there's going to be things I need from you, but I think it's a good time, and I think that all of you bring something that's worth putting a spotlight on. Let's get some final comments in, and then I'm going to play some obnoxious outro. Jake says, looking forward to Halloween Ends dominating the conversation in horror circles, eclipsing all of the much better stuff that's already out there. I'm not looking forward to that at all, but I think I have a war plan this time. Because last time I knew too much about the movie, and I was trying to warn people to taper their expectations for kills. Not a lot of people listened to me. See how that turned out? This time I'm trying not to learn much about the movie, but I'm already going to tell you to taper your expectations. Here, I'll give you this. I can confirm a digitally de-aged Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's a major plot point. There you go. Now you'll feel like I spoiled something for you. Yeah, but I think I have a pretty funny, or at least funny to me, response to all the Halloween Ends talks. So that's right around the corner. I will say, I've avoided a lot of it because I don't click on those links. People, even my friends who want to talk Halloween Ends, I'm like, nah. If I do end up going out to that convention in Kentucky that a lot of the community is showing up for, I think the plan is to go see it one night. I probably would do that with my brothers in arms, and then we'd record reaction. But otherwise, I'm not even eager to see the movie at all. At all. Robert Long says Arnold Schwarzenegger's son Patrick Schwarzenegger should have done the Running Man remake. See, I wanted to go back to the novel, which is such a gritty. The concept of the novel is they release a felon onto the streets of America and say anyone who kills or captures this guy gets a reward. It's like winning the lottery. So it's like the whole country is against you. It's a very kind of a Logan's Run, it's like 1970s dystopian thing, and I think that would be fun, a lot more fun than what they did with the movie. Orc says, thanks for the show, man. Orc, thank you for existing. The world is better with you in it. Ben Grimm says, can't wait for Halloween to end. I want the season to never end, but the movies, yeah, they can go away. And Jake says, I can confirm there will be forced comedic relief. Probably, I don't know that, but right, has to be, because that's the Marvel thing that's infected everything, is like anytime something serious and perhaps impactful happens, you got to undercut it with a stupid freaking piece of dialogue. Yeah. I have not seen Vendetta. Really? You're saying best film last year? I'm going to have to do that. Jessica saying, great show, learn. Of course you'd think so. He still got it. No, I'm done with the antibiotics. I have explained this. I don't have it anymore. Still some of the lingering effects, though. Anyway, to everyone out there, I want to really thank you for watching. These shows are always both fun and hectic, and I never know whether they're going to work, and somehow you guys make them work. So thank you so much. We will talk again very soon.
Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
What? Wait. What?
I watched like 3 movies from 2021.